Hi, I'm Theo, and these broadcasts are to support the blogs on nomorec.com's website as well as the online classes. In this episode, we explore Christ as the Firstborn, Part 1. Welcome back to another episode of the No More Sea broadcast. We've been doing a lot of things on this channel, and one of the things we talked about was the 5-minute challenge by Dr. Heiser, and spending 5 minutes. At the same time, we're going to be talking about like doing word studies. So, you could spend, that 5 minutes a day just picking a word out and doing a word study. So, that's one of the things that we can do. And so today we're wanting to just try another word. So last time we tried the atonement. So here's a concept that we want to look at, the firstborn. So Colossians 1:15 in the Bible, the New Testament describes that Jesus Christ, he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. And some people get all hung up on this terminology, and maybe it's best just to take and run this through Heiser's 5-minute challenge, which I'm not going to do for you. So I already showed you in a previous video how you can run it through yourself. So I don't really want to do that. I'm just kind of, moving it forward. So you should go now and do what you can do with all the research tools that we provide, or your own that you already know. And again, as always, hit me up in the comments below if you have tools that you think are worth discussing. But we're going to look here at the term firstborn of all creation. So it appears, again, 3 verses later. So anytime you're doing a word study and you're trying to figure out what a word means, it's really good to see how it's being used in the same context, by which in this case, hopefully, is going to be the same author. I mean, we're talking verse 15 to verse 18. So it says, and he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in everything he might be preeminent. So this needs to be the context of what we're talking about. So when we go back and we look at, he is the image of the invisible God. What does that mean? Well, that is loaded. You could check out like Catherine Beckerleg's, now McDowell, having gotten married, her dissertation at Harvard on, that idea of the image, what it means to be made in the image of God, all the way back to Genesis 1:26 and 27. And she does a really good job in her dissertation, taking that out. And once you understand what that means for Adam, then you'll understand what, it means for us. But then moving beyond that, now what do we talk about when we're talking about Jesus being that image? And, following through with what it means for us to be imagers, and running that through like some of the things that Dr. Heiser has written in the Lexham Bible Dictionary, or, and trying to understand what it means to image God and be imagers. Because to understand what it means to be fully God and fully man, as Jesus was. So Jesus is fully God, he's fully man. So we learn, he became like us so that we can learn to become like him, so that Christians become like Christ, who is like God. And we can experience all those verses in the Bible that we keep bringing up in this channel about godliness. So, all of that's packed in here, but we're just focused in on this firstborn of creation. So that word, that gets so many people hung up. And so they turn to verse like this, and then they, but he's the firstborn of all creation. Does that mean he's a created being? And that's where the problem lies. And then you have the context here that the author goes on, and he is the head of the body of the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead. So we're getting that term again. And so a lot of people then automatically start pulling in, well, if Christ is born, and if he's first of creation, does that mean that he is, this idea that he is then created? And is that what we're implying here? So we have to go back to some of the studies that you might have done with Dr. Heiser, and maybe we'll do on this channel another suggestion for a word study, and maybe your 5 minutes. And again, how deep you go. So the atonement, you can do 5 minutes and be done with it, move on to the next term, which I'm saying firstborn, and you could do the same thing and move on, or you could stop and pause at firstborn and go through. Well, another word you could do is Elohim. And what Dr. Heiser does with the word Elohim and all the materials that he gives out there, that's available free. So you could study the word Elohim, and again, you could just move from term to term to term and do a rather quick 5 minutes each day on atonement, firstborn, Elohim, or you could stop with atonement and kind of play around. And so we have, again, online classes. So we are doing an online class through nomorcy.com to exemplify this, so that that those who want to go deeper into the atonement can get into that class and dig deeper into the word atonement, or they can just do now what I'm doing, suggesting is drop onto a totally another term and firstborn. Well, in a third term could be Elohim, and when you move from atonement to firstborn to Elohim, or again, I said it's up to you to choose these words, depending on your situation, what you want to study. So again, you can go down through and hunker down as you're hankering for more knowledge, to go deeper into a word. And those 5 minutes, you can spend a whole month, on one word every day, 5 minutes, or just. Again, I look at it like this: you could just let it flow. So as long as the word, to me, in my thinking, as long as that word is capturing my attention, I'm going to spend each day 5 minutes on that word until context of my life or studies or what I need to be doing causes me to move to the next word. And I may go back and revisit, but that's what you're doing with studies. So depending on the projects you have, or if you're teaching the classes you're teaching, if you're a student, the classes you're taking, and the projects involved in all of those things, or whatever, again, your church Bible study, it could be firstborn. We could move to Christmas. If maybe you need to study the word firstborn, because here it is again. And she, Mary, gave birth to her firstborn son, wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn, out of Luke 2:7 here. So here's firstborn. So that's moving outside, of Colossians. It's moving outside of the Pauline tradition, and it's moving to a different author, Luke, who was a companion of Paul, but it's moving to an entirely different context. So, does this help us to understand what the word firstborn is? So, and Elohim, when you dig into Heiser stuff, you find that Elohim has many different meanings. And so there are Elohim at many different levels, but there's one Elohim that is Yahweh. Yahweh is an Elohim, but that doesn't necessarily automatically then state that by virtue of that all Elohim are Yahweh. Yahweh, as Heiser has made very clear, is species unique. So we know that there are no other Elohim that is Yahweh, unless we're talking about the Trinity, obviously. So that can mean that there's only, there's many firstborn, obviously. Okay, so we want to look into this. The Greek word here, firstborn, is prototokos. Prototokos is what is used in the Greek, and it's for instance what's behind the Greek translation of Exodus 13:2. So set every firstborn aside from me, the first birth that opens up every womb among the sons of Israel, human or animal, and it is mine. So that's the Greek word that we have in all these verses. Okay, so and behind the Greek word is bekor. Bekor is the Hebrew word that we find in Exodus 13:2. So that's the equivalent. When the Septuagint was being made about 200 years before Jesus, okay, so when that was being translated from Hebrew into Greek, they chose to take this word, bechor, and they chose then to translate that with prototokos, this Greek word. So we know that there's an equivalent here. Now, we have made a huge jump. We're jumping quite far. So you'll see the jump that we've made here. So we started out in Colossians 1:15. We saw the word immediately in the context here at verse 18. So that's going to give us an idea when we look at these, how it's being used to understand this terminology. And some people want to understand it and try to imply that then Jesus is created and born, okay? And so he's not God. He's just a human. And is that what's being said? And then we jumped over to another verse where it's being used in the New Testament to give us an idea that what Paul, the Pauline tradition, what Colossians is trying to bring out, what the church is trying to say. And so we have here, a New Testament. And then, since it's a Greek word that we're trying to figure out, prototokos, then we take in the Septuagint, and about that time, it's being translated. So about 200 years before Jesus on into the first century, this is being translated. And this is, the Septuagint is the Greek translation from the Hebrew that is being used the majority of time by New Testament writers. At least 60% or more of the times that they're using the Old Testament in the New Testament writers, they are using the Greek directly. So we can make comparisons. And then the other times we have to try to figure out if they're using something else. But the majority of the time they're using this. So this is what's in use by the believing communities in the first century, the context of what we're talking about. So they're using this word, and they're basing it off of the Hebrew word, and it's all in Exodus 13:2. So what I want to do is I want to look through these now. So go back. Let's talk about firstborn of creation and think about it for a minute. And it's the firstborn from the dead. Now, obviously, he's the image of the invisible God. But is he just like Adam and the rest of humans are made in the image of God? Is he the same in that sense? It's just God is Yahweh. God is an Elohim. But does that mean that there's only one Elohim? No. But does it mean that all Elohims in the Bible are equal to God? No. So does that mean that Christ being the image of the invisible God, when it's being said that, does that mean that, he's the same as all other images? No. I don't think so. I don't think that philosophy applies. Okay, I think you can understand that there are many Elohim, but there's only one Yahweh, except as you understand the Trinity. And same thing here. There's many images of God, but just as there's many Elohim and there's many images, there can be one special image, one special Elohim that is species unique. So the whole idea of Christ coming, as we're trying to express it, is that Christ comes, he's fully God, and he's fully human, fully man. Okay? So then here we have he's the beginning. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead. And in everything, he's preeminent. Well, in everything, Yahweh is preeminent. So you could see how that Jesus is preeminent in everything because Yahweh is preeminent in everything, so it fits. But he is the beginning. Okay, what are we talking about in the beginning? Well, in the beginning, we can go back to Genesis 1 again, and we have that language of Adam being created in the image. And notice here, we don't have that language that Jesus is created. It's never stated that way. The Bible does not teach us that Jesus is created. One has to interpret that, infer that, imply that from the text. None of this says that he's created, like Adam was created. Okay? None of that. Okay, so he is the beginning. Beginning, in the sense you can roll back to Genesis 1, beginning. So you can roll back to that. He's that beginning. But what are we trying to do when we say that? You can argue theologically that, Christ is the beginning, but it's not like there's an either or situation here where these terms, they're very loaded. So when we're talking about in the beginning, yes, he is the beginning. In sense of Jesus is understood as Yahweh, as a part of the Trinity, as in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 and verse 27, where God made humans in his image. Jesus is in verse 27 in the sense that Jesus, God, made humans in his image. So you have that as a part of, he's the beginning. But there's something else here, because when he talks about the beginning, we have the firstborn from the dead, and there's a new beginning, a new creation. And so in the sense that he's the firstborn from the dead is also tying to a new beginning. So it's people are getting things confused, and it's so packed full of theology and so wonderful that we're missing things here. Okay? So Mary gave birth to her firstborn son. Her firstborn. This is the first child that Mary has. And in the sense that this is the first, well, let's go. We looked at this earlier. So let's go check this out. Okay. Notice it says here, set every firstborn aside for me. The first birth that opens every womb among the sons of Israel, human or animal, it is mine. And I want to look at here at obviously Exodus 13:2 in the ESV. Consecrate unto me all the firstborn. Whatever is the first to open the womb among the people of Israel, both man and beast, is mine. What does it mean by firstborn? Well, I think it's very clear here in Exodus 13:2. Consecrate to me all the firstborn. Okay, we stop there. Let's say God is speaking in Exodus chapter 13, verse 2, and he makes a command, consecrate to me all the firstborn. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, first of all, who are the firstborn? Well, the firstborn is whatever is the first to open the womb. Join us in part 2, where we pick up the discussion using the example of Reuben and Joseph. Thank you very much, and God bless you for listening. Stay tuned for more episodes and videos to help you with your journey from nomorec.com.